My name is Paula Cook. And
Hello, I'm Catherine Darlene Blackman.
what is your birthday?
My birthday is June the 4th, 1947,
And where were you born?
in a little house on Charles Street, here in Westminster, Maryland.
Okay. And could you please tell me about your family?
Absolutely. We were a large family, 16 births and 12 who grew up together to adulthood. And we were the Supremes in temptation sometimes. Very close.
And so, who is the oldest and where do you fall at in the line of the 16?
My oldest sibling was Jimmy Cook, who has passed on, but I'm like fourth from the oldest in the line of the 12 who survived.
Okay. And what did your parents do?
Daddy was a chef and a construction worker. He helped build the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. And Mommy became a nurse at a psychiatric hospital.
Okay. And what was it like to be with so many siblings?
A blast. I wouldn't change it for the world. I can't imagine a smaller family, but we were organized. Mommy passed on a little schedule that I was able to help her in her absence to continue that little routine. So we did things in shifts.
What school did you go to as a child?
Robert Moton!
From what grade to what grade?
I went there from 1st to 12th grade.
And what was the most fun subject for you?
Oh, that's a hard saying. I'm a person that just loves to learn. So it's hard to pick a favorite subject, but in my time of study, I've learned that English literature became a big interest for me. I didn't plan it, it just turned out to be English literature.
And what school did your parents attend?
Well, Mommy went to Robert Moton also. Daddy, I'm not sure where Daddy went to school, but Mommy went to Robert Moton and finished there.
Okay.
But they only went to the 11th grade in her day.
Did your mom share any of her experiences of being in school?
Well, one thing I especially remember was Miss Harris was always a topic of discussion. And she always enjoyed typing. And she wanted to grow stronger in that area. So when I became interested, she purchased a typewriter for me, and we sort of had a good time piddling with it together. And she also wanted to play piano, so she got one for the family for Christmas. And we couldn't figure out why she got a piano because no one said anything about a piano. And she watched, and our little brother Benny, about 7 years old, decided he was going to piddle with it, and he came up and said, "Hey, everybody, come and listen." And he started playing the Pink Panther theme. He picked it out on his own. So Mommy said, "You're the one," and hired Mr. Cornish to teach him piano lessons.
So what types of teachers were at Robert Moton? And what nationality were they?
African Americans, all of them were.
And how was their effect on you as far as learning was concerned?
Well, they were just amazing. Now that I'm older, I liked their goals they set for us, and they shared what they were so that we could work towards them, could help them work with us on those goals. and the parameters were specific. You could get spanked by the teacher, or she had a little pointer sometimes, and if somebody was showing off, she'd crack their little knuckles with that pointer, but it would straighten out the students. I think the best part was, even though they could spank us, it sounds horrible, but it really wasn't as bad as it sounded. Just knowing that we could possibly get a spanking, everybody walked the straight and narrow, and therefore there were very few incidences of anybody being punished that way. It was maybe one person in my class that we knew went into the bathroom with her and came back with tears. There were no more incidences after that. But I like that they said what they meant, and they meant what they said. And they kept their word about us being responsible, and how it wasn't going to be tolerated that they squander their day. And they were very encouraging. You could feel like maybe you couldn't, and by the time they would say, "Oh, sure, go ahead, you can do it, try it." Sure enough, you could do it, and you'd feel good about yourself.
So,
very loving.
So were there specific subjects that you had to take in order to graduate?
Well, when I was in school, there were 3 diplomas that you could obtain. You had to pick one. And one was a general diploma, and that was where general courses were taught. General math, general science, general everything. And then you could get an academic diploma, which was a diploma that prepared you for college. They were all advanced courses. You had to take 2 years of foreign language also. So we had chemistry and physics. We had algebra, geometry, algebra 2, trigonometry, and calculus. It was amazing. And then the third one was a commercial diploma, that there were people who were interested in typing and shorthand and bookkeeping, and so they went the commercial studies way. So I picked academic because I wanted to go to college to be an elementary teacher. And I studied le langue de français.
So that was really a lot of fun.
Yeah.
One of the things I was always curious about was, what type of materials did you all get taught with? And where do you know where they came from?
Yeah,
School supplies.
our supplies were used. They were damaged books, and they came from Westminster High School. When they got new materials, we would get the ones they were finished using. And the books were just tattered and torn, but we still could see and use the information that was in them. It worked anyway. We were just glad to have a place to go and study.
So it was basically, at that point in time, getting materials from elsewhere. And,
Yeah.
and not being of good materials.
Yeah, we didn't get new
materials.
books or supplies or anything like that. They were all used. I don't know. I know when we had a band, Mr. Kane. This man was a mathematician who taught all the advanced maths, and he was a music teacher. So he not only taught us music, and he taught us composers, George Gershwin, Irving Berlin, all of these folks that we would have never heard about, but he shared them with us as we learned to sing the songs. We sang, he arranged that we could participate in the county's, what they called the Estedfod. I hope I'm saying it right. But it was where all the schools in the county came together and had a big concert. And guess where our class was?
Where?
On the back row. Yeah. But we were glad to get dressed up in our pastel dresses and participate in this big gala affair. So he worked it out. I don't know where he got our instruments, but one year I wanted to take instrumental music, and I asked him, did he have anything I could play? I didn't know which instrument I wanted to play. I just wanted to learn more music. And he said, I have a trombone. And I was glad, so I went to play the trombone, and we had a competition in Carroll County, and we went down Main Street. I think it was, where's the fire department?
Main Street.
Okay, and they had judges up on that, what is it called?
Balcony.
Yeah, the balcony. And we went out there and we played our songs, and we won. And all we wore were black bottoms, skirts and pants, white tennis shoes, and white blouses. We didn't have a uniform at all for years. And then I'm thinking, it's coming to my remembrance that Western Maryland College was replacing their green uniforms with something new and gave them to Mr. Kane. And Mr. Kane had them dyed royal blue, and so we had these royal blue jumpers and jackets and things we could dress out in real band uniforms. And then he had we had fundraisers where we sold stuff to make money to get our helmets and plumes and our boots and the majorettes. And, oh, it was exciting. But anyway, that's the way the teachers were.
So did you have a favorite teacher?
Yes, I sort of inherited what Mommy enjoyed. I loved Miss Harris. She was like a multi-purpose kind of teacher who, when I walked in the door, she said, well, hi, little Catherine. She knew me just when she first met me, she knew my face. She knew Mommy. She remembered Mommy. And she was a guidance counselor. She taught English. She taught English literature. And she taught me French. She even taught music. When a music teacher didn't make it in, she could do that. And there was a time when the principal may not have been able to get there, that she would handle the principal's office. But she could do a lot of stuff, And
So
I
she
admired
gave the
that.
inspiration of
Yeah.
multitasking.
Yes.
So was there any particular sports or clubs that you were involved with in school?
Well, I tried. I keep telling you that
Take your time.
that I didn't, look at me, I didn't think I could play volleyball. I never played volleyball before. And they just had a way of persuading you to try stuff, so I did. And I was able to play volleyball on the volleyball team, played basketball. And I was a rovering forward. I mean, who would have thought that would happen to me? But they were that kind of teacher that would encourage us, and we'd try and find out we were better than we thought. So I just kept on trying stuff.
So what was your mascot?
The Mustangs. The mighty, mighty Mustangs.
Did you ever cheerlead in school?
Yes, I did. For about 3 years. And like I said, I didn't know I could do that, but they would always say, oh, come on and try out. You never know. And sure enough,
So
you can.
what did you feel like growing up in Carroll County at a time when it was segregated?
Well, I really didn't know I didn't understand that for the longest time, because we had friends that were Caucasian, and they used to come down to our neck of the woods, so to speak, and they'd play with us, but some of them couldn't, their parent didn't know they were there, but they would come and play with us and then beat it back home before it was noticed they were away. But it wasn't really up close and personal and obvious to me, because folks were friendly and we just played and got along.
Children today need to know the history of where we've come from.
Yeah,
And you're doing a wonderful job, and
I
really,
appreciate
really
that.
sincerely thank you.
it's just really, it's like hindsight. Now you see the preciousness of what was going on. Even when we were growing, there were people who were doubtful and felt like, something was missing because we had all these old books and leftover things that we had to work with. But the teachers were so, how do you say it, passionate about teaching us that it didn't matter that those books were old and tattered and marked up. We were on a mission. And because they didn't see a problem with it, and we couldn't see a problem, we didn't make an issue out of it. We just came and learned. But I love them for that, because all my life has been make it work. Take what you get and make it better or make it work. And I mean, here I am, a retired teacher. Who would have thought? One of 12 kids in a 4-room house with no bathroom. And those teachers, it didn't faze them at all. They just worked with who came and helped grow us. The whole child, It's a lot more I could say about how they just took us in as though we were theirs. And, someone would say, and Miss Harris would stop us and say, intelligent people answer yes and no. And she started teaching us how to speak in complete sentences. And, you just couldn't stay the same. They were so encouraging, and they'd praise you a lot for making the effort to apply whatever they were trying to share. But anyway, go ahead with your question.
Yes, that's wonderful.
Oh my goodness.
What was the inspiration for you to who was the person that inspired you to become a teacher?
I remember when I was a little girl, my brother had a girlfriend who was away at school to be a teacher. She went to Bowie. And she was just this wonderfully friendly, sweet-spirited person. And her name is Jessie Dorm. And I just wanted to be like her. And the more I got to know her, the more I wanted to do as much as she does, so I could be as much like her as I could. And so when I grew and was at school, from Jessie, it went to Miss Harris, because she could do so much, and make such a difference in so many lives. But Jessie first was my teacher. And I started playing school at the house with you all.
Which I remember that.
There were 8 siblings under me, and they were my students. And that tickled me when Ivory had a birthday party for me, and it was up here and I didn't know about it, and Nat said he wanted to say something to me, and he said, the one thing I always remember about you, Darlene, is, comment allez-vous? He remembered my French lessons,
and he
because
was just a baby.
Yeah, I would come home and I'd say, qu'est-ce couleur? And ask what colors and all of that, and he remembered some of that. So, but that Miss Harris.
So the whole ordeal of Robert Moton being a school that was, quote unquote, not going to be successful at getting you all where you are today, they turned the whole ship around?
It wasn't so. I mean, I went into Baltimore County, to take my college entrance exams. I was shaking like a leaf, because you hear it whispered, oh, you all don't have that good an education. Look at this stuff. And this school doesn't have that much to offer, but we had everything we needed and some, because they made an effort to expose us to everything that was going on in the other schools. And so I went to take my exam and passed it. 4 hours sitting there taking this test. And then I applied in the schools I wanted to attend and was accepted. And I'm going, they don't know me, not really. And then I felt like there was a part of me that that began to ponder over that issue about, oh, you're not getting that good of an education. And so I decided that I didn't want to go to an African-American school, college for higher education, because I'd always been around African-Americans all my life. So I chose Catonsville Community College, made the dean's list almost every semester. And then my counselor helped set me up so that I could transfer to Towson. Now, I was chosen Queen of Robert Moton one year and went to Morgan as an experience to sort of, that's what they did to sell the college. They'd get high school queens to come and they'd show off their university. And I chose Towson instead. It was too much for me, too many parties. I'm sorry to say that, and I'm not saying Morgan wasn't good, but I just chose Towson because it was predominantly Caucasian. Made dean's list. As a matter of fact, my senior year, I was invited to be in the Alpha Phi Data or Phi Alpha something, National Honor Society is what it was. And I called the lady, I was going to be initiated, and I called the lady and I told her, ma'am, I'm not interested in being in a sorority. And she said, oh, this isn't a sorority. This is the National Honor Society. The computer spits you out. You can't join Phi Theta Kappa, whatever it was. I can't remember exactly. But we went to, they did the installation services in different areas of the state, I think. And I was to go to the Towson community because that's where I was at school, but there was a ceremony being held there, and it was candlelight, and it was so darling. I just felt so special, but that's because of the foundation Robert Moton gave me, So here I am with a card that tells me I'm a Phi Theta Kappa, I forget what it is, but anyway, that National Honor Society person. And I mean, who would have thought one of all these kids would be able to accomplish such a thing, Well, that's how I thought.
How was it when it came to like going to stores and shopping for dresses like the typical girl does today?
Well,
goes and picks out her own stuff.
It depended if your family, my family couldn't afford to do that sort of thing, but I know Mommy and Daddy had a charge account, let's say, at a little store up on Main Street called Mr. Evans, and that's where they would go get food and stuff we needed for the house. But we couldn't go in the front door, And it didn't bother me. I just did what Mommy did, So whenever she was away, she and Daddy were working, if I ran out of anything like bread or milk or whatever, I could go up to Mr. Evans, and he knew who I was, and I had permission to charge stuff I needed. So I would go up there, and I wanted so bad to buy a candy bar. It was only 5 cents, but I went, No, I'm not, Darlene. She didn't tell you to buy a candy bar. So I just stuck to the grocery list.
So back in the day when your parents were bringing you up, there were placed upon you many values.
Oh, yeah, and we had hand-me-downs, like if Aunt Florence's kids outgrew something, she would send it to Mommy, of course, and Mommy had all of us, so somebody could fit it. So we had a lot of hand-me-downs, and we were thankful for them, and we were taught to take care of them, and like I would wash out my Bobby socks. I only had 2 pairs, so you wore one today and washed them out so that day after tomorrow I could put them back on.
Was there ever any famous, like, football teams, basketball teams that would come to Carroll County back then?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, there was, the Baltimore Coats used to come to town, and they trained at Westmoreland College. It's called McDaniel College now, I think. But then it was Westmoreland College. That's where they trained. And so us kids would try to get our chores done so we could go up and sit on the sides on the hill and watch them train. And then when their work was done, they would come down on Charles Street, and Mr. Huffman was the ice cream man. He would bring his yellow truck up the street, and they'd buy boxes of ice cream for us kids. And and we would enjoy the ice cream because our parents couldn't always afford to buy ice cream.
So how was your memories as far as growing up in Carroll County?
I would do the same thing again. I think it's a good place to grow a family, especially when I consider the size of ours and how Mommy and Daddy were able to keep us all together and teach us the morals and principles that would make us good citizens. And we had wonderful neighbors, but it was all African American. And the people who were Caucasian, you know, I didn't have many experiences of somebody being rejectful towards me. You know, it was just that their kids weren't allowed to come and openly be with us. So you went on and played with each other and enjoyed yourself.
So how does it make you feel in 2015 to compare where you came from and where you are today?
Sometimes I feel bad for the young people today because I was guilty at times, feeling like I was missing something, because in 1964, some of the kids could go to the school in their neighborhood, like Mount Airy and Sykesville High and North Carroll, but there was a group of us that stayed at Robert Moton because we were contented. And sometimes I felt like I had missed something. But the more I think about it, I'm glad I stayed at Robert Moton because I was cared about for real. All of me was being loved. And I didn't have to worry about passing a test or somebody accepting me regardless of the color of my skin. And I'm thinking that even when I talked to Ivory, he went to Sykesville High, there were times when he felt like he was just there, you know, and that he was never really a part of the family, so to speak. Because, but what saved him was he was an athlete. He and his brother could play some basketball. So I'm just saying that today I'm not sure if those principles and parameters and morals are really shared or taught to the kids of color. I'm not, I can't speak for everybody, but I know it was a difficult time because the law said schools had to integrate, And not everybody was on that page yet. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So that's my only sadness.
So what class was the last class to graduate from? What year was that?
1965, we were the last graduating class. And that was a sad time in a way. But it needed to be done, so it's like you just had to go with the flow. I was glad we could stay and graduate. You know, that they didn't shut it down in 1963 or 64, you know, so for me, I was thankful. And what they did was they stopped letting new grades, new students enter. So quite a few folks had to start in other schools, but they let us stay and finish.
So the change of Carroll County makes you feel what?
Happy, sad. Because I know they didn't. Let me tell you something. I used to work at, it's called Rite Aid now, but
Reed's.
Back in the day it was called Reed's Drug Store. And I was a short order cook and a waitress there. And I mean, I was allowed to be a waitress, which meant I could go out in front and work because of my complexion. But they had to integrate. So I was chosen. I was going, why didn't they choose you? Because you know the whole fountain, you know. And but they were darker than I was in color. And they said, well, look at, and then it dawned on me. I went, oh my goodness. But anyway, there were young people from the high school that would work with, that was out there on the front working, and we'd bring our homework there to do in between our orders or customers. So, I mean, I realized that I was just as smart as they were, because some of them would say, how do you say birthday in French? How do you say this or how do you say that? And I could tell them the answer. And I went, they're from Westminster High School. In my mind, I was thinking they ought to know the whole 9 yards. But I felt honored that I could tell them the answer, you know, and so they just kept bugging me about their homework, but that was okay.
So what would you say to the children today that are of Carroll County that would help inspire them to appreciate their education?
Well, I don't know the teachers all over the place, but just from Robert Moton, the one thing that, it's a combination of things, because our parents expected us to be obedient. So if you weren't, you would get it from the teacher, and if it didn't get straight by your teacher, you'd get sent to the principal, and if he couldn't straighten you out, he would get in touch with your parent, and they would get you anyway, you know. But I appreciate that, that my parent or our parents expected us to be obedient to our teachers and to not disturb a classroom. And the other thing is, you know, this is your life. You know, I would tell them, pay attention and learn as much as you can, because you're not coming this way again. It only happens one time. And, you know, if you do well as you go, you have greater opportunities, a wider range of choices to choose. I don't know if that made sense. But don't cripple yourself or shortchange yourself by being a clown or showing off or disturbing the class. You yearn to learn. Pick an area of study that you enjoy and build yourself up in that area so that you can be the best you can be in that. And it becomes your future, hopefully.
So I would like to thank you, Ms. Blackman.
Oh, you're
for
welcome.
your patience and your time. Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you. I hope it made sense. I hope that someone can be encouraged.